Welcome back to another Dan's Tuesday tip of the week. I am Dan Prince with First Home Mortgage. This tip of the week is to help you capture and close more business, the things that I've experienced or have found researched, came up on my feed, what have you. It is Halloween, October 31st, All Hallows Eve. Not sure of any more nicknames, but that's what we're going with. Our topic today is as spooky and scary for the Southern Maryland region, holding tanks. So let's kind of, full disclosure, it's going to be a little bit of a long one. There's kind of a lot to unpack here, and we'll just kind of jump into it, right? So a typical house, it has a septic, right? Everybody has a horror story about a septic, or how they love septics, or whatever. Everyone knows what a septic is. Now, specifically, we're referring to a lot of the homes that are waterfront or very close to water or back up to some kind of waterway of some kind, right? Because most inland houses don't have to worry about this. But because Southern Maryland has a lot of waterfront, water, whatever houses, this affects a lot of people. So it's worth noting, and it's worth kind of unpacking and going over. So what a septic is, right? We'll break down what a septic is and then move into holding tank. So a septic in the ground, everything from the house goes through the septic into a drain field. Everything in the drain field is in the drain field. And a septic is kind of like a filter for what is coming from the house. All the water and all of that stuff just goes into the drain field where all the contaminants stay in the septic, which is why a septic is pumped every 3 to 5 years. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the typical time that it's needs to be serviced, right? Where a holding tank is like a gallon jug with a hose screwed into it, right? And the hose leads to the house. Everything, water and its contaminants, come from the house through the hose into the tank, right? Then there's, depending on, the house size, the lot size, the amount of people in the home, the whatever, right? All of those determine how many tanks you have, how big they are, where they're at, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And they take everything from the house. So all the laundry, all the sinks, all the toilets, all the showers, keep going. All of that comes from the house through the tube into the tanks, and they stay there. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, because the waterways, right, that surround a majority of Maryland, Southern Maryland at least, are affected by the drain fields that the septics drain into. Some of the things in the water, the county, the state does not feel that that's necessarily the best thing to have go into our waterways. Think about potential shit enter the creeks and the bay and the rivers, and nobody wants any of that. Nobody likes any of that. Imagine that when you're swimming around or whatever, right? Not good. So it makes sense to have some kind of concern about the earth and the environment, right? As an avid outdoorsman, I can say that I support this, right? Because it makes sense. You want to protect that stuff for the future. You don't want it to be gross and disgusting and contaminated. But it definitely raises some concerns and some flags, and it's kind of worth unpacking, right? So you have to pay for these, right? The once your septic fails, the county is going to review it, or whomever will review it, and they will say you need a septic tank, and I'm sure they'll fine you out the whatever until you get one, or make you pay some kind of hefty fine for not doing it, right? That would suck. So you have to pay for this, and along with this comes a new monthly expense. I don't have exact quotes, so let's run some fake potential numbers. I don't know how much it actually costs. So you're looking at anywhere from 150 to 300 to maybe even 500, depending on how big your house is and how many people you have in it, right? But that's a new monthly. My bad. Sorry, kick the table. That's a new monthly expense that you now have that you didn't have before. That is kind of forced on you. That could be a car payment. That's a lot of money that you just now have to have. So let's talk about people not being totally Schitt's Creek. Let's talk about that. So the Chesapeake Bay Foundation is a program from the state, counties, all that, that because they're forcing this on you, they're willing to cover it, right? The basic idea is they'll get some engineers out there, they'll get contractors out there, they'll work all the specs and get everything inspected and get everything certified to put these in for you on the foundation's dime. Now you're on their time. This isn't, they move at their pace and we all know how they are. So, but those funds are available to homeowners to not kind of say, here's this new thing, you're required to have it, sucks to suck. So, going through all of that, I'm not going to explain the entire details of it because it would just take forever. But that's essentially something that you can do to alleviate some of the pain. Now, it's paid for. You still have another monthly expense. So let's unpack the real estate side of it. So we don't like it. But let's talk about it, right? And it makes sense when we really break it down. It makes sense to think about it because let's say home A and home B are the exact same thing. One has a holding tank, the other one doesn't, right? Photocopy each other. One has a holding tank, the other one doesn't. Let's say this one has a $300 monthly holding tank expense. This one doesn't. Well, you're going to argue with an appraiser that says that this house has the same attractiveness as this house? I wouldn't. If I was a home buyer, I would say that house is worth less. If I was a realtor, I would feel the same. Fight me for those realtors who disagree. But I mean, it does. You have an extra car payment, right? $300. I know that's old car payments. Now they're probably at the 500 plus mark, but you have an additional monthly expense on house A than you do with house B. Right? It's going to affect home values for the ones that have it because it affects the attractiveness. It affects how many people are going to be okay with that additional monthly expense. Now, we don't have to have that in qualifying because it's a voluntary thing. But home buyers have to know that going in, that every 6 weeks or so, you're going to have that expense. Now, for a realtor, you have to be able to convey this to a seller as to why you might not want to list a property at a certain price, or why you think a home buyer will come in less, or finding creative ways to still get your sellers what they'd like and get the job done. But it's important to know this, and it's important to be able to talk with this about your sellers. Talk to this with your sellers about this. And know that this is happening. Know that this is a thing that's going on and will probably be more prevalent over the next decade or however long, right? So especially for those waterfronts, especially for those properties that back up to an estuary or some kind of creek or little coves, whatever, you're going to have more than likely these holding tanks forced on them. And they need to know that. And it's our job to take that information and give them the best information, advice that we have. So Dan's Tuesday Tips. Happy Halloween. I hope I didn't scare you too much. I hope to see you back next week and enjoy Halloween. Hopefully the kiddos can get all the candy. Parents, don't go insane with all the candy brain kiddos. There's a lot going on. Hope everyone stays safe. Have a great week.